EnterTalk Radio. You're in to all things music.
Welcome to Intersect Radio, where music, faith, and life converge. With your host, Aaron the A-Train Smith.
Ooh. How's everybody today?
Yo.
To the show. Florentino?
Yeah. Hey, man.
Thank you, my brother, for being here.
Yes, thank you, sir. This has been a very special day. This is Intersect Radio with the incredible Aaron A-Train Smith, folks. And I'm going to be the first and last time I announce his show because we're just proud. I'm the CEO of EnterTalk Radio, and this man's been a good friend of mine. Inspiration is just not even close to that since I was first starting out in this business back in Sacramento. And I'm not going to give the time, but I was like 15, 16 years old, and Aaron was playing with some really cool groups like Romeo Void and the 77s, and I was just in awe of what you were doing and how you're doing it. And I just want to welcome you to the network, sir.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. I'm looking forward to many broadcasts. And
we are too.
And introducing the audience to the lives of some really great musicians and great people.
Yeah. I think I'm super excited about this, and we've been talking about this for a while, and I am just amazed at the response that we've gotten. I think Jackie's already talking with some pretty major people.
Yeah, man, he's blowing my mind. He's sending me all this contact info, and I'm going, whoa. It's great.
Exactly. I'd like to say, first off, you've accomplished so much, but you're super, super humble. It's just kind of funny. It's like, you've been an inspiration for so many, but you still see yourself in a way that is like, just almost like a newborn in the business in so many ways. Obviously, your value, you know what you've done. You don't discount yourself in the least bit, but we're going to mention, I'm going to blow, we're talking with the David Garibaldis of the world, and we're talking with, the Peter Michaels and stuff like that. And these are guys that have been on the network before, and that, kind of have a connection to this relevant topic that we're going to be talking. That's ultimately the forefront and how this works. Take a moment to explain what the show is about, and, your thoughts and your opinions about it.
Okay. Well, the show is basically structured on, or as a reflection of my life and what happened to me, as a musician, and how I started out, the lifestyle I led when I first started, and then I became a believer, and how that changed everything for me.
Yeah, definitely.
And I know that there are tons of other musicians out there who've gone through the same thing. Everybody's experience in life is different, but once you believe, things have to change, and not because there's a rule that they have to change. It's just that it just does. They just do. It changes.
Yeah, and I think that's a key. I mean, that's been my biggest driver. I mean, I'm jumping right into it. At the end of the day, I really, I try to move. Well, my faith has been around since I was a kid. I personally have always known, Jesus in my life. The difference was, as of late, probably around 2007, I really started to, find community, and I think that's a big part of what it is. Not just community with just not just community of a church, but people that have some similar experiences, that have faced certain things in life, community groups and other things that have come about, and then of course, the musician piece. Working with different worship teams and doing both playing bass, doing some worship leading, and then quite often because of the way the lack thereof, I do a lot of sound for churches because there's just not a whole lot of people with that call.
Really?
Yeah, I really try to avoid it because I've been doing that. I've been done with it for so long. But.
There are a lot of people with that call, but what makes it challenging about doing sound in church is that every Sunday somebody's going to complain that it was too loud.
Yeah, there is. It's tough because really it has to be broad because you've got younger, you've got older, you've got different flavors of genres and
right.
And one of my not to complain, but one of my biggest one of the challenges I had to overcome, part of it was ego, part of it was just sheer not quite understanding the dynamics of corporate worship fully when I first started, was just that it's just that the music should be done in a certain way, and why are we compromising that? Mm-hmm. And I don't necessarily look at it as a compromise so much anymore, but to me it was and I still dance with that a little bit. I still sometimes I wonder, why can't we do a song that the congregation doesn't quite know, so that they'll learn it, or what have you. So there's always those dances, and so you kind of balance that back and forth. But when you're doing sound, you don't have to necessarily worry as much about that. And depending on kind of as you do it a lot, you get a chance to judge who's in the audience and who's not in the audience. I fortunately was doing a lot of work at a school that a church that really does ministry and mission to universities. So we had a lot of young people, so it wasn't that bad. Mm-hmm. Wasn't that bad about the loudness, except for every so often you get those crazy drummers that really want to cut loose and
oh my goodness, do all their Dave Weckl licks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I had I go to this church, Community Bible Church here in Nashville, and I've been going there now for about 14, 15 years. And the first time I went to that church, I went to a men's Bible study on Thursday morning called Theology for Breakfast. A friend of mine introduced me to that group. And I introduced myself, and there was a youth pastor there. And he said, "Wait a minute. Are you like the Aaron Smith?" And I went, "I don't know. What do you mean by that?" He said, "77s?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, I was in the 77s." And he just went nuts, man. And because he grew up on our music. He said that our music had saved him. Wow. Out of a certain sort of lifestyle, listening to a certain sort of rock that his mom didn't appreciate, or and everybody told him that spiritually it wasn't good for him. And anyway, so I joined the men's study, and he tells the pastor who I am and tells him about the music and stuff. And the pastor and I had maybe after about 4 or 5 of those Thursday mornings, I decided to come to the church to a Sunday morning service. And I told him I was coming, and he said, "Well, I just want to let you know that you probably won't be playing drums here. So if you really just want to come to church and worship with us, that's great." He said, "But my congregation, they don't go too much for drums." And I said, "Yeah, man, I just wanted to come to church here. I'm not coming here to play drums."
Yeah, exactly.
But as things would happen, I was asked to play drums once for the music worship leader asked me to play drums, and so I did. And so once a month turned into twice a month, which turned into every Sunday. And
be careful what you wish for, right?
Yeah, but here's the beauty of it. I had this older couple come up to me one Sunday and go, "We never liked drums in church. We always thought it was too loud and too boisterous." He said, "But you are a Holy Ghost drummer.
That's amazing. That's awesome. Yeah, you to understand where the Spirit leads you is really a key. So that's awesome. I think that's really paramount to delivering great corporate worship.
Yeah, and we tell musicians who come to our church to play that this is not the stage. This is not a performance. You're ushering people into worship here. So always keep that in mind. Leave your ego out in the parking lot, and there's no showtime here.
Yeah.
And they get it. They get it. We've been fortunate enough.
They do, and I think it's sometimes, at least for me, it was tough, because you get a lot of non-serious musicians just wanting to contribute, and I get that, but I had a hard time adjusting to that because there are certain practices, principles, methodologies, all these things that you're used to in a band environment that is a professional band environment that doesn't always apply, and you have to learn how to adjust and accommodate that. I really, like I said, when I first came to to work with the group, it was really very much amateur based. I mean, like most Christian music, I feel that's contemporary right now, started with people playing acoustic guitar, more like campfire stuff, right? And you sing along, and it was rough for me because like acoustic guitar doesn't belong in every song, but
right.
But so you started. I had to adjust, and you start to learn, to how to define that. I would encourage though a lot of churches to look at, there's a balance, I guess. There's always a balance of how to present it and how to, to deal with it. I've had people tell me that, the music is not important. It's about the worship. And I think that, I would, respectfully disagree with that to a certain degree. Yeah. It really, at the end of the day, it's all about the worship. But as people worshiping, I think we're asked to do our best. I always think, it's kind of silly, but I always think back to the little drummer boy. He didn't have anything to offer, but he played his heart out. He did his best, and because he was passionate about playing the drums, so, that was his gift. I don't know how, I don't know where that story came from or whatever, but as a kid, that always touched me. It's like, you got to give your best, and you can't just kind of wing through it just because, your heart's in the right place, but your musicianship is, not on target. So I think there's a balance between all of that.
Yeah, there is. I live in Nashville. We got more musicians here than CEOs.
Okay. Thought we dropped you there for a second.
Oh no, I was trying to think of a comparison. So, there is no shortage of good musicians.
Oh, I know. When I visited you there last summer, it was great.
Yeah. Every church has a great worship team here.
Yeah, and just amazing. All types of music too. Everything from rock to country. Obviously, is a big part of what's going on. But R&B, and then the musicians are very versatile. That's what I found out there. Yeah. For me, that was that still is, even when I first started in the business, and that's going back to when I first met you at Warehouse Ministries in Sacramento. You were there with the 77s, and I knew you from Romeo Void, and starstruck kid, man. It was like, that's Aaron. That's the A-Train. I didn't even know you played with the Temptations at that time, man. That was, I think my brain would have exploded. So I think the Lord protected me from that. I was like, I'm talking to a guy that played on Papa Was a Rolling Stone. Are you kidding me? I'm like 16 years old. So,
yeah.
And that was a big inspiration. I really think that, I kind of miss where you guys were coming from with you, Charlie Peacock, and all the different bands that were coming out of there. In fact, as we were cutting the spot from this track, by the way, is a 77s track that you wrote. That is your intro and outro. And, Paul was listening and goes, that don't sound Christian. I said, it's all where the Spirit came from. Cause it doesn't have a typical, Paul he's played with a number of worship teams in town, and he wasn't in the doing the music back then, obviously, but that was really cutting edge. That was like cutting edge for music, period, back then, more or less for Christianity. I know that as you explore this show, you're going to be exploring how that was back then.
Right. That we had a record label at our church called Exit Records.
Yeah.
And the whole intent and drive was to get a Christian message on secular radio. And
you guys were doing it.
So we were doing it. The musicianship was on par and sometimes even better. And the lyrics were great, you know?
Yeah. Very meaningful, deep. It wasn't necessarily trying to be sing along, which there's a call for that, but
right.
It was definitely something that you can bite off on. So yeah, it moved me. It kept me focused on the kind of music that I wanted to do in my life. And at least even if it's a love song, to have that kind of messaging in there. So I know that you guys, that's it's. That really changed the face of music. They came up with a whole new term for it. It was called straight edge. There was a punk movement called straight edge, and that kind of was spawned out of that, and that was pretty big. And I think that you've been able to...
The irony of it is that we had tunes on our records that were banned on Christian radio.
Well, there was a cat that came out like in the 70s that really kind of started the whole contemporary Christian music, where he said, why does music have to be hymns or this traditional stuff that we've been doing? Why can't it be something that is relevant for the sound of today? And he passed away not too long ago. I read an article on him. I can't remember his name, but maybe we can put our minds together, think about it.
Huh. I have no idea who that is.
It's just... It was more classic rock type of sound, but he was doing that, and then a lot of people spun off of him. And looks like we got I've got the clock flashing at us. So
we're coming up on a commercial break here.
Yeah.
So you folks stay tuned. We'll be right back, and thank my great friend Florentino for ushering me into radio broadcasting here today.
Awesome. We'll be right back in a few short minutes, folks. Also want to give a big shout out to Jackie Bertoni, who is back on with us here. He did an amazing job with his interview with you yesterday. So we've been it's been the A Train hours lately.
Yeah, man, it's been just this and nothing else.
Yes, all A Train all the time.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on EnterTalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on EnterTalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Welcome to Intersect Radio, where music, faith, and life converge. With your host, Aaron the A-Train Smith.
Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for holding on. Well, we had to go to some commercial break here. I'm here with my good friend, Florentino Buenaventura.
There you go.
Who's actually the CEO of EnterTalk Radio. Great friend, bassist, and I'm just glad he's here with me today to usher me into Radio Land.
Well, it's again our great honor and pleasure, brother. So thank you for asking me to be that guy. So
yeah,
I was like,
yeah, man,
that was a big honor. So I mean, it's a big day for us here. And I think I speak for all the team here that we really are happy that you're on board. Your spirit, your history is really going to be very impactful for us here on the network.
Oh, cool. Speaking of history, why don't you tell us something about yourself as a musician and just how you got to get into radio here?
Oh, man, that's kind of that's an interesting story. Well, I've always been to music. I'm kind of like Bruno Mars. When I was like 4 or 5 years old, I wanted to be Elvis.
Oh, right.
I just didn't quite take it to where he took it to. I wanted to be Elvis. One of the problems that I had though was I was always impatient. So I was always looking for the faster route to success. Mm-hmm. And as God works with us throughout our time, it's success. Is built over time, and I was looking for the fast track. Yeah. But so I always had music in my heart, and didn't really come from a musical family. I played in bands, in the high school band stuff, and then got to high school and started doing marching band. I go, nah, I really want to do our rock and roll band stuff, and actually I was into funk and R&B, and I had a couple of good friends there. In fact, a few of them kind of grew up to be pretty well, integrated into some high notable bands. So I always call it Bobby G. I've known Bobby since we were in kindergarten. And
really?
He went on to go play for he started playing for
Didn't he work with Earth, Wind, and Fire?
Yeah, he was
at some point.
Yeah, Earth, Wind, Fire. I was trying to go back to the beginning days. Jesse Johnson. My brain.
Oh yeah, Jesse.
So he was on tour with Jesse Johnson right out of high school. It seemed like forever, but when I look back on it, he was like 19 playing for Jesse Johnson. I'm like, wow, it took him a year to get there, but now it's like that was there. And then from there it led to, it led to Sheila, because the whole band was from the Bay Area, and Sheila knew all those guys. Eddie M, who was playing in the band that he was in, All As One. Took off. So I watched a lot of my friends who were contemporaries kind of grow up into it, and I kind of took a turn for the business side. I figured business was going to be the quicker route for me to get to doing music, and I didn't put a whole lot of time into actual focus of rehearsal. So I wasn't very good. I still have a long way to go, man. As a player and as a vocalist, I still try to work on it every day. But yeah, it took me a while, and then I took a really quick turn towards business. I was in a bunch of bands because I was playing keyboards, and nobody at that age could afford to buy a keyboard. I was fortunate and blessed that my family was uber supportive. So I had I had a couple of synthesizers, and I was trying to play keyboards, which I'm terrible at. But so I was in a bunch of bands, and then I figured the fastest way to do that is I would manage the bands, and then next thing you know, they all kind of. In fact, I managed Bobby's band that he had before he got with All As One, which was the big band that went on to play for a bunch of notable artists. But
did Bobby have a brother?
He did. Has a dad, Robert Sr.
Robert,
so you might have played with Robert. Robert, he was young when he had Bobby, so he might come across as a brother. But yeah, he was a amazing player.
You know, they had these. There were two brothers in Sacramento who were quite gifted at music.
The Brookins brothers.
They were Brookins brothers. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Robert and Michael. Yeah.
Those guys. Robert definitely played with Earth, Wind, and Fire, didn't he?
That's how Bobby got the gig. So
yeah,
we were all connected as friends. In fact, we did this bit, kind of silly, but we did a high school talent contest, and our lead singer looked like Michael Jackson. Like Michael Jackson at the time of the height of Michael Jackson's career back in the early '80s. So here we were, and then Mike Brookins, who was him and Robert were signed to Earth, Wind, and Fire, and essentially, Mike came out and announced us, and then after our, we won the talent contest, but it was really weird. Then everyone treated us like we were already celebrities because we had Mike come out and announce us, and then, and then the whole Michael Jackson thing. I mean, it's really weird when your girlfriend asks you to sign an autograph, man.
Oh, that is weird.
That was really weird. My ex-girlfriend asked me to sign an autograph. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Hey, I did a gig with the Brookins brothers once at some park in Sacramento. Yeah. I was in a band in Sacramento called Thunder Wonder.
I think
it was me, Roger Smith, Al Key, and Steve. I can't remember Steve's last name now, but we used to play out at the city airport all the time.
Yeah, over over not the main airport, but the one over there off of Freeport Boulevard.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They had a club up there.
I'm trying to remember what that one was. I used to live right there, like walking distance to that place.
Oh, really?
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, man. I was living in Boston, and I got this phone call. It was the blizzard of 1979. And I got a phone call from my friend Al Key asking me if I wanted to join a band. And I said, "Where are you?" He said, "It's in Sacramento, California." And I went, "I'll be right there."
Were you in the Bay Area at the time, or were you living in Sac?
No, I was in Boston.
Oh, Boston. I'm sorry. I missed that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. The blizzard of 1979. The snow was still melting when I got that phone call. So I was like, "Oh, yeah. I'm coming." And so we played Tahoe a lot, and we played all around. There was a club out in the hood that we played every Sunday.
Touch of Class?
Touch of Class. Thank you so much. Did you ever go there?
Dude, I used to book Touch of Class. I was like 16 years old and the only non-African American in the club. In the 21-year-old club, booking acts over there. I remember that. It was just so funny. It's classic.
How'd you get to do that?
Well, that's kind of part of that whole story. When I started managing, and I was always a fairly bold person. I would just fearless and attempting things, and I just would go to people and start talking to them, and I would book clubs at 16, and I ended up getting hired by Mike Rogers from Mike Rogers Talent Agency and Mike Rogers Presents. Eventually, actually, I had my own agency. I used to have at 16 years old, I had an office over at the Vox Room. If you remember that store off of Marconi.
I remember the Vox Room.
Yeah, off of Marconi, and I used to they gave me an office, man. They trusted a 16-year-old to go out and do what Gene Thorpe was doing over at Skip's Music. And it was pretty crazy. I was booking the bands, and I was really just trying hard to be that guy, all with the idea of it providing me an opportunity to play. And it's kind of funny. And then, but you never have time. You never have time to work on your craft. You're always focusing on somebody else's stuff. So I did that, and then I started working with Mike Rogers, and we started doing some he was after Bill Graham, he was the #1 promoter in town. So we worked with like Roger Troutman and Zapp, George Strait, Earl Thomas Connolly. We did a lot of country shows. We worked with Greg Kinn, who was big at the time, Jeopardy, and
I remember that name.
I remember getting, I booked the Busboys tour at again, I don't know who's trusting it. I think I was like 17 or 18-year-old, but I was booking the Busboys after they did for the Northern California tour, after they did the Ghostbuster soundtrack. And I'm like,
man,
yeah,
that's great.
Who was trusting? I look back on who was the brilliant guy that was trusting some 16-year-old to do this stuff.
Yeah, wow. Now, do you think your faith helped you in any of that, or because it sounds like you're pretty mature. You know?
I really.
When I was 16, I wasn't that mature.
I was. You kind of get this sense that this is what I'm meant to do, so it gives you a certain confidence in your presentation that a 16-year-old wouldn't normally have. So I believe, I believe that, I believe from an early age that God wanted me to do something in the music business. Part of it was, like I said, I was my own ego was getting in the way for some of the success that I could have had. So he kind of kept things away from me that would have corrupted me. I think that's part of what I really believe is that, I've come close to like major successes a number of times, and they always eluded me, because I feel that if I would have gotten there, I would have fallen away from the Lord. I would have gotten into the world's ways of things, everything from, just all the stuff. I never did drugs. I've never actually had I've never had a drink. I've never done drugs.
Wow.
Yeah. So I've never really had to battle that. But in those particular cases, not being able to, we never are able to stand up to that kind of stuff on our own. We always have to have God's grace, shielding us from that, and you keep praying on that every day. So I don't think I would have survived that if some of the major things that were approaching me would have come about. So, but yeah, I really believe that my faith worked for me in that way, that I was like, anything's possible. God has me here to do something, major in this business, and I'm just going to go ahead and see what can be done. And it started off early on in there, but then sometimes life takes a turn, and I had an album that by the late '80s at that point, I had an album that was on Cashbox charts, and I think it was like '86. And
you as an artist?
No, as a producer. I'm sorry, I should have qualified that. Yeah, I was never, again, I wouldn't have hired myself as a player in those days. I still would have a hard time hiring myself as a player. I always feel that there's somebody always better, and that I would like to hear, doing these parts that I had. So I was a producer and as a group called Fourth Phase, and man, that was a struggle. God taught me major lessons in that. The band wanted to be uber sexual, and I just felt uncomfortable with that. They were younger than I was. I was 21 at that time, and they were 15 and 16-year-olds, and I think the oldest was like 18, and wow. And they were just young and stupid, like I was. Yeah. And I didn't want to look at it at the time, but I believe that the owner of the record label that was hiring us was a major drug dealer. When you get followed around by the police in every city that you're in. And he carries a 9mm in his briefcase, and he's rolling at the ripe age of 24. He's rolling a $150,000 AMG car. You start wondering, okay, where'd you get the money from? And then you're getting well paid, and he's paying the band, and we're recording at like Granny's house, which was in Reno, which was a high end A caliber studio, multi-million-dollar studio, and then Ground Control and all these different really top end studios. I had a similar experience. I was playing behind a singing group in my hometown in Durham, North Carolina, and the manager was the hustler drug dealer. Sold heroin and cheap jewelry, and he just had all sorts of scams going. Wow. And, I don't know what this dude did, but I know, you can know back to it that there was something not right about the whole, the back end of everything. So you got to at least know the details.
And one ironic part about it was he was arrested, tax evasion.
Oh, wow.
He was put in maximum security prison along with Hinckley.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah. And
I think Hinckley is the one who killed John Lennon, right? Or it was the one who shot Reagan. I always get those two confused.
Well, yeah, shot Reagan. Right.
Yeah, he was rich. Chapman was the one who shot John Lennon. But it all happened around the same time. Reagan survived, obviously, but unfortunately we lost John Lennon.
And he booked the band in the prison. So we actually went up to the prison and played a show.
Wow.
And we had to go through so many cell doors, locks, and after you pass one entrance, you get patted down and searched. You move your equipment to another entrance, you get patted down and searched. And I think it was 3 of these. We sat up, and the auditorium was dark except for on stage. And they have lights along the walls of the auditorium, and the lights came on and started blinking. And at that time, grown men started coming into the auditorium in single file, not saying a word. They sat down, didn't say a word, very quiet. The lights went off. We were instructed that, okay, now it's time to play. I think we were into our 3rd song, and the lights in the auditorium come on again. They start blinking, and without one objection or anything, they all stand up together in unison and file out of the auditorium in single file like they came in.
Wow.
That was it. Nobody said anything.
No, don't want to know why. Just ready to rock.
Yeah. And we saw him. We saw him in the audience. It was the weirdest thing. It's like, wow. Oh my goodness. His name was Willie. It's like, Willie, man.
Yeah.
Good luck.
You weren't saved at that time. Is that right?
No, I wasn't.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't. I was still at home. I hadn't moved to Detroit yet. I was still about 17 or something like that. We have a lot of music in my city. So
wow. So it must have been pretty, crazy. You're 17 years old and going, if I didn't have music, what could, he's some of the people, like you said, the one guy that was running the drugs was there, and it's amazing how
there was sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It was everywhere, and I didn't know any better. Yeah. I went along with the program. God saved me from a lot of stuff, though. I got to tell you that, man. Sometimes when I look back on those days, I just say, "Thank you, Jesus."
Yeah, right. When you didn't know any better, there was somebody else out there looking after you. So that was.
He had a plan for me,
Yeah.
But definitely he let me see some pretty dark stuff, and walk away from it.
Yeah.
So it's that time again. We're going to go to commercial break. Before we go, we'd like to, of course, thank all the people over at Pitbull Audio. They're like helping it out. They don't have that organization here in Nashville.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear, host of Sound Experience here on EnterTalk Radio. And Source Connect by Source Element is the essential tool that we use to link between my studio in Austin, Texas, and the WS radio station in San Diego. Now, with Source Connect, not only can we communicate in real time and with HD audio, but it's synced up and is of a high enough quality that I can use it for real-time ADR work, remote recording, and overdubbing, and it even allows me to remotely control a DAW. Source Connect by Source Element. Affordable, high-quality audio and video connection over the internet for all of your production needs.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on EnterTalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Make this your vinyl night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion which burns deepest at night. Tune in.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
Welcome to Intersect Radio, where music, faith, and life converge. With your host, Aaron the A-Train Smith.
Welcome back, folks. Thank you for hanging in there. This is my first day here on the radio as a host, and I'm learning a lot quickly.
You're doing a great job, brother.
Well, thank you. I got my friend here, my ace, Florentino Buenaventura, as guest and co-host today. And we were just talking about faith and talking about our past and how, you know, we look back now on our teenage years and we can see how God was protecting us and just getting us through certain things, but yet it's exposing us to it, you know, and that's the good part, you know, is that, you know, you get to see certain things and you get knowledge from those things and you're not so naive anymore.
Yeah.
And that's what, I mean, I learned a lot from exposure to really bad stuff. And I learned a lot from exposure to really good things too. But being on the road, that's where I grew up. You know, when I was at home, I was a sheltered kid, you know, and there was no, you know, I thought I knew it all when I was a kid, like most kids do. Mm-hmm. And then I was punted out into the world, and boy, was it waiting for me. And I know you had some experiences like that, you know, because you're a musician and you played music. But I think you made a great choice to decide to get into the business part of it. That's pretty obvious because look at where you are now, and that's pretty cool.
Well, you know, we were
you
kind
have
of
a relationship with,
yeah.
Huh?
I was going to say that you know, it was a long course coming. You know,
yeah.
We'll definitely get into some of those things, but finish your thoughts.
Okay. I grew up in church, like I tell you, and my mother was a musician. She was a singer. She didn't play any instruments, but I learned that she at one time she had people in my hometown who were willing to pay her way to music school to learn how to sing operatic music, and she turned it down because she didn't want to leave home. But she exposed me to a lot of music. She demanded excellence. She sang in the church choir. She started singing first chair soprano when she was 17. She sang her last Sunday at church when she was 82. And she did a lot of weddings. She did a lot of special events around town, things like that. But she required excellence, being on time, knowing what you're supposed to do. And she never charged people. And I thought, man, you know, we could have been kicking it, Ma. You know, but she never did. She never charged for her performances and stuff.
That's her soul. That's awesome. That's amazing.
Yeah, and I left home and went to Detroit. I moved to Detroit in 1970, and I hadn't contacted my mom for a year. I had been gone a year. I hadn't talked to her. I hadn't written her letters, anything. And I'm living in a big house with there are four musicians living in the house. And one Saturday morning, we hear this knocking at the door. It's just like intense hammering at the door. And of course, neither one of us wants to get up and answer the door. It's like 9 o'clock or so on a Saturday morning. And so me,
the night before probably.
Oh yeah, we're doing something the night before probably. And so me, I get tired of, and I get up and I go downstairs and I look out the little fish eye, and there's my mother. I open the door, and the first thing she goes is, "Boy, where have you been?" I've been right here. And so she's bought her own ticket to Detroit. She knows my address. So obviously at some point I let her know where I was living.
Yeah.
And she had a cab waiting outside, and she had already checked into a hotel. Man, I was so embarrassed.
I'm surprised she didn't just grab you by the ear and say, "You better come with me."
Right. But, after that, we had a great time. I took her out, and we saw the spinners. She loved the spinners, and I showed her the town, And I think back on those times, and when I was saved, at the moment of my conversion, I actually thought about my mom, and I thought about all the times I spent in church, because she went to choir rehearsal every Tuesday night. She was in charge of the youth program. And so I was at church maybe 2 or 3 times a week because I had to go with her when she went. And I just thought about all that. And I thought about all the songs we used to sing in church where the words didn't quite make sense,
Yeah.
Salvation, transgression, words like that, and I would make up my own words, just trying to imagine what they were saying. I didn't understand those words, so I'd just make up words and sing the melodies. But once I became a believer, man, all those words just started coming back at me, and I was going, man, yeah, that's what that meant.
Yeah,
that's what they were saying,
Yeah.
And
I hear you.
If it hadn't been for my mom, I wouldn't have had that connection.
Yeah.
And,
I agree. I think I'm a lot like that with my mom, and both my mom and my dad were very instrumental in my life. They're probably a little too lenient. They let me get away and do what I wanted to do, probably far too much. But, one of the things I did when I was a kid was I would always, church was, I was raised Catholic at first, and church was always, Sundays or Christmas and Easter, and then every so often, Sunday when they, my mom or dad felt like, it's time for us to go to church. And then after a while, when I got older, like 6, 7 years old, 8 years old, I would say, let's go to church. So I always had that kind of call. I some of the things, and I never did as a Catholic, I never did. Communion or confess my sins. I internally I didn't feel that was required to have a relationship with God. I just kind of innately felt that and believed that, and still to this day I think that there's a personal relationship, and then that kind of carried through with me. But my parents really, I was just really blessed, man. I had just 2 uber supportive and really just heartfelt parents that just wanted me to do the right things, and they kind of instilled that in me, and I kind of carried on through the different things like we were talking about at 21 with that kind of that drug dealer, label owner. After that, man, I left the business. I went and started working. I started doing different things. Kind of, I was actually working. I decided I'm just going to work at a bike shop for a little while. And then I started got into technology with MCI, if you remember that. And God was always there with me, but I was kind of like, well, I basically made a lot of money, and the label at that time was trying. I was putting out all that money into my own artist, and then the label tried to steal the artist, and that kind of ruined the relationship with with the artist. All the money that I had put into him was gone, and I was like, oh, this is just, I just got heartbroken. I just decided I wasn't going to do that anymore, and I started getting into technology, and that's kind of dabbled a little bit, but but I always kept in touch with a lot of the friends I had made throughout the years. Michael Eamon Boddicker, I knew from the the early times yourself, and you just kind of keep those hearts, and then later on, I started getting back into it, and God always kind of directed me. My biggest problem was I was like a little, just kind of an insistent kid. I would tell God what He wanted for me. I was always thinking that was Him telling me, but I was like, God, you want me. You want this girl for me. You want this business opportunity for me, right? Right? I know you do. Right. I already know. You don't even have to tell me, man. I know that you want this for me. And that was my biggest, still to this day, it's hard not to listen to my own voice. It's hard to shut myself up, especially now that I'm in the business of talking. That was my big, that's probably still my biggest challenge is, not having a relationship with God was there, but he'll be like, okay, you keep talking. I'm just going to sit here and wait for you to finish.
Yeah.
And
then that's, I think a lot of people have that issue.
Yeah, it is. That's the toughest one, man. It's a tough one to deal with, even at the highest levels. You hear stories about some of the pastors that, kind of got in trouble as they kind of move along. And again, they're going on their will, not God's will.
Right.
Right. And for me,
but I once I became a Christian, I was I had started doing work up at Warehouse Ministries.
Yeah.
And I had started with this band called Vector. I did a record with them, and they wanted me to join the band, but the record president, who was the pastor's wife, said I couldn't be in a band up there because I wasn't a believer. So after that, I got the gig with Romeo Void.
Yeah.
And while I'm preparing for that record, I get a call from Mary to come back up to Sacramento and do a record with 77. But
Mary was the label owner, or the label head, not owner,
president.
But
yeah, she was president of the label. Very sweet lady. I learned a lot from Mary. I'm totally indebted to her for a lot of things. And so part of doing that was I had to go to Prestatyn, Wales, for 2 weeks with the 77s. So I'm practicing with the 7s, and I'm going back to San Francisco, and I'm coming back up to Sacramento, and we practice, and we go over to Prestatyn, and that's where I was saved, over in Prestatyn, Wales. And so when I came back, I was a believer, and was in Romeo Void, and we went out on tour for a year. And just before we went out on tour, I stopped at a bookstore looking for something to read, some sort of Christian thing to read, and I bought a book by Dietrich Bonhoeffer called The Cost of Discipleship, which is a very heavy book for a new believer.
Yeah. Sounds like it would be. I haven't read the book, but just the title alone just kind of goes deep.
Yeah, it's about cheap grace and costly grace. And I was going like, what? It's almost like, man, I'm just going to have to leave the world and go set up a tent somewhere.
Become a monk.
Yeah. But and after that, I would get calls for auditions and stuff, and I couldn't do it. I once got a call to go audition for Billy Idol, and
wow.
I knew if I did that, it would be over for me. Because I knew if I got into that lifestyle and his audience and his vibe, I couldn't endure that.
Rock and roll pandemonium at its grandest. I could feel that. Fortunately, God kept me away from those, because I would have probably jumped on board with that. I would have probably been a little too cocky and said, I can handle this. I can do this. I can still walk in the Lord. And, that's a tough one, man. Cause, you're seeing, a lot of opportunities, kind of pass by, that the world would be going, what are you doing and what are you thinking? But, you know, where your soul is. And I was fortunate, you know, like I said, you know, the coming close to getting, you know, some major things happening. God pulled those things from me, because I would have went with him full steam ahead. Trust me.
Yeah.
Whether it be things in the, you know, your career, or, you know, even like relationships, you know, I was like, you know, this is the ones, you know, I'm meant to be with. And, you know, and then it turns out not to be the case. And you look back on it, hindsight, go, yeah, God was already telling me that wasn't the thing for me, but I wasn't listening. Right. You know, I wasn't listening.
Exactly.
So, you know, and for me now, that's what I believe. You know, the network is well-rounded. You know, we're not a Christian network at all. We're a network about the music business. But I felt that was a big part of what the network, you know, is what people's lives are, is their faith, and you know, and that's where, you know, I believe God called me with what we're doing here, and in its entirety. We're hoping that this is a whole new industry now. You know, it's a different world for the music world. And, you know, I've got friends, like I'm going to give a shout out to Barbara Leong, who is my version of the next generation manager. She's not that Frank DeLeo cigar smoker. You're going to give us that kind of money and try to figure out how to finagle and do things in the back, you know, through the back door. No, she's like totally doing everything, you know, from, you know, a place of, you know, really dedication and just, you know, trying to do the right thing, doing it out of passion, commitment, and focus. So, you know, I was, you know, she's uber sweet, and I'm like, you're not like the managers I'm used to. So, and
is she in San Diego?
No, she's actually in LA. She works with John Beasley, who is like her probably most notable artist that she worked with. John Beasley, piano player for Miles Davis, and he's got his own stuff going on now. So, you know, and then she had Brendan McQuarrie, who is, you know, does scoring and a bunch of other stuff. He's his own recording artist, also lead singer for Oingo Boingo Dance Party. I should give the whole name, even though it's still Oingo Boingo with a different lead singer. But you know, they have to add the dance party to make things all legal. So, you know, she's really doing it, you know, from a major way. But, you know, and, you know, she's always on the up and up. Ooh, we got a flashing light there, man. We're running out of time.
Oh. Time.
It goes quick.
Yeah, it does. Time's got wings, man. I'm telling you.
Well, I'm going to close this first part of this out and then leave you with the rest of it. But thank you, man, for agreeing to do a show with us, because I think this is going to be a really important show for the network.
Well, thank you. Thank you for asking me. You know, it's nothing I ever thought about doing. So I was excited about the challenge, and you know, I don't think I hesitated to say yes. If I did, it was only a few seconds. So I thank you for seeing that in me, and having confidence in me, and enough confidence to ask me to do something like this. I appreciate it.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes.
Yeah, man. I am too. You know, I'm really looking forward to having these guys on, having my friends on, and hearing their stories. I'm sure I will hear stuff that I never heard before. And I'd like to invite you all to come back to Intersect every Tuesday starting the 24th of January. We're going to talk to some very interesting people, hear some very interesting stories. And I look forward to seeing you back here.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time, or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear from Eclectica Studios. I'm a full-time mixing and recording engineer. I work with Grammy winners, labels, and indie artists, using state-of-the-art digital mixing and restoration tools and the very best in analog gear. Really, though, it's my ability to bring tracks to life and fulfill your vision for your music. This has made me sought after by producers and artists worldwide. So spend your time working on music and not chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. Go to timdolbear.com and check out our free one-song mix offer.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on EnterTalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.